Our story follows a black woman named Sandra Guidry, a public speaking professor. Sandra says goodbye to her mother one last time before she gets cremated. Then she goes home and buries her mother's ashes under the ground near her home. On the first day after burying her mother, Sandra returns home from her usual morning run to find a red truck parked in her driveway. She writes a note asking them not to park there and leaves it for the owners to find. After that, Sandra goes to the university and meets her class. A student, Gretchen, hands her a letter thanking Sandra for keeping up with her schedule. After a faculty meeting, Sandra confides in another professor, Arthur, asking him if he saw a red truck that morning. Arthur tells her that the owners are probably just hunters. When Sandra arrives home, she's surprised to find the red truck again on her property, with her half-torn note beside a dead bird. On the second day, Sandra sees a deer and its fawn in the middle of the road during her morning run, and she's briefly reminded of her mother. When she finally arrives home, Sandra hears a vehicle approaching and realizes the hunters are back. Sandra confronts the hunters and asks them not to park in her driveway, adding that it's a private road and that they should take the other way if they want to hunt. One of the hunters, Nathan, denies seeing the note Sandra left for them and explains that they won't cause any trouble. He insists that the other way is much longer, and Sandra's property is a good starting location. Still, Sandra refuses. She lectures them, saying they have to ask before they park on someone's property. Another hunter named Samuel angrily walks to Sandra, saying he's already heard about her. Nathan stops his angry brother from getting too close, and then they get in their truck and leave. That night, alone in her house, Sandra starts packing her mother's things. She can't help but get emotional as she goes through her belongings and sees pictures of her. On the third day, Sandra sees the truck again. This time, she decides to tow it. When the hunters return, they are frustrated that their vehicle is not where they left it, not knowing that Sandra is watching them from her house. Later that night, Sandra finds an arrow shot at her door. On the fourth day, she meets with Deputy Wolf to complain about what happened. Wolf thinks the hunters must have gotten angry when Sandra towed their truck, but Sandra insists she's within her rights. Wolf doesn't want the issue to get bigger and reminds Sandra that involving a law enforcement officer could be seen as an escalation. That's literally your job. Wolf then promises to talk to the hunters to resolve the issue. He wants to go alone, but Sandra insists on accompanying him. They first go to where Nathan works, and he immediately recognizes Sandra. Wolf explains the situation and makes Nathan promise not to go to Sandra's property again. After that, they look for Samuel. Realizing how big the property is, Sandra asks if they will not call for backup. Wolf says his only backup is the sheriff, who is currently on administrative leave. One by one, men show up with their faces covered, not wanting Wolf and Sandra to go further within the property. They refuse to remove their masks even though Wolf has asked them multiple times. They don't recognize his authority and ask if he's going to shoot them too. They hold a grudge against Wolf after the sheriff shot one of their cousins, probably a cousin wife. Understanding that none of the men will budge and listen to him, Wolf finally shows his gun, escalating the situation even more. In a battle of will, Sandra finally steps in and tells the men that the sheriff was wrong for shooting their cousin, and they are right to be mad about it. Then she reminds them that the person at fault is not there with them, and they shouldn't take their anger out on Wolf. After that, they leave without getting to talk to Samuel. Wolf advises Sandra to live in the condos near the college and not out in the middle of a canyon if she wants to feel safe. Or, novel idea, the men should stop harassing her. On the fifth day, Sandra wakes up to find the two hunters parked at Arthur's. She informs Arthur that two hunters have crossed his fence to get into her property. She warns him that they have guns and that they keep coming back, so they must be onto something. Arthur shrugs off the warning and tells Sandra he will talk to the hunters when he sees them. Sandra decides to follow the hunters, keeping a safe distance so she won't get caught. Nathan drops off his brother at his house before driving away again. He stops and picks up his mother, helping her walk so she won't slip in the snow. Sandra is surprised to see him acting kind towards the woman, so she continues to follow him. She ends up inside a small church with a mass currently going on inside. She takes a seat at the back, surprising Nathan. Annoyed and angry at the same time, Nathan sits beside Sandra to confront her. But Sandra changes the topic and starts talking about her mother. She finds out that Nathan's mother is an organist at the church and that Nathan only attends Mass to make his mother happy. Sandra is reminded of her mother's devotion to the church, sharing that she was also an organist in their home in New Orleans. Nathan sympathizes after realizing that Sandra's mother is already dead. Then he catches his mother looking in his direction. The tone of his voice quickly changes, and then he asks Sandra to leave immediately. On her way back, Sandra stops at Samuel's house to confront him. Samuel has a different idea and asks Sandra to go inside so they can deal with it. Frightened, Sandra starts walking away and out of the property. When Sandra attends the Christmas party at Arthur's house, she sees Deputy Wolf again. He is curious about her and asks what she used to do before she became a professor. Sandra admits she used to be a police officer in New Orleans and left the force due to a devastating event after a hurricane. She says she wanted to protect people as a police officer, but couldn't protect her mother when she needed her the most. On the 6th day, Gretchen visits Sandra at her house and asks if she could still be her TA. Sandra doesn't mind but wants to know what Arthur thinks about it. Gretchen then admits that after the party, Arthur approached her, asking for a favor. She says Arthur said he pulled a muscle and asked her to rub lotion on his shoulders. Gretchen explains that nothing more happened and asks Sandra not to tell anyone about it. During a meeting, Sandra is disappointed that the faculty-selected students are not as diverse as she thinks it would be. She confronts Arthur about it and says they agreed to include and recommend one person of color to the dean. Damn, just one? Arthur stands his ground, saying they are not just trying to fill in a quota, but looking for the best person for the job. Sandra is not giving in, saying all the options are white. Arthur says identity politics will not sway him, and that hiring Sandra is enough proof that they value diversity. This might be a work of fiction, but you know damn well this happens in real life. Surprised at his reasoning, Sandra asks Arthur how he is, adding that she heard he pulled a muscle after the party. Arthur is surprised that Sandra knows what happened with him and Gretchen, and he immediately panics. Sandra tells Gretchen they should go to the dean to reveal what happened. She insists they have to fight back. Gretchen is horrified and asks Sandra if she has told anyone about her secret. Sandra says she did not mention her name. Gretchen is afraid because she can't afford to lose everything she worked for. Arthur then shows up and asks them what they are doing. To save Gretchen, Sandra apologizes to Arthur for her behavior earlier and says she will take some time off. Later that day, Sandra sees the two hunters dragging a dead deer through the snow. After hearing and seeing Arthur greet the men, Sandra makes her way to his property. Arthur asks her to walk away, sensing the tension between her and the two hunters. But Sandra ignores the request and checks the dead animal. She confronts Samuel about how killing a small animal makes him feel good about himself. Angry at what she saw, Sandra starts to walk away. However, Samuel mentions that Sandra visited him before, saying she can return whenever she wants. Sandra snaps and hits Samuel in the face, surprising everyone. She threatens to kill him if he comes back again. Samuel is hurt, but he tries to shrug it off. Later that day, Sandra is chopping wood when she hears a gunshot. Nervous, she drops everything and runs to where her dog is, only to find him lying dead on the ground. She holds her dog close as she cries for him. "All right, I give you permission to go all out. No sane person would harm a dog like that." Sandra then gets her gun and drives to the town, looking for the hunters. She finds them drinking in a bar with Arthur. She takes the gun and starts thinking about what she should do next. She battles the idea and decides she can't do it. Despite her anger, Sandra disassembles her gun and throws it away. She looks around and finds the red truck parked near her. Coming up with a new idea, she gets in the truck and drives it all the way back to the canyon. A group of trucks arrives at Sandra's property, looking for her and their stolen truck. In the middle of the cold night, Sandra starts digging a grave for the dead animal, while Samuel and his group surround and trash her house. He screams to let her know they have arrived, but Sandra remains unfazed. After putting the dead fawn in the shallow grave, Sandra sees the mother deer watching her, and she can't help but feel sorry for them. Meanwhile, because they can't find Sandra, Samuel and his group start to burn down her house, cheering as the flame engulfs Sandra's home. Arthur panics and doesn't know what to do. Samuel keeps cheering as the house burns down, making Nathan angry. Nathan punches his brother, but stops himself from beating him up. On the 7th day, the two brothers make their way home early in the morning. Samuel gets inside first. After a few minutes, Nathan enters and joins his brother, leaving the door open. Sandra soon arrives, carrying a gun. She cocks the firearm as she walks through the door, surprising the two brothers. They try to talk to her, but Sandra pulls the trigger and shoots the two hunters multiple times. After it's done, Sandra walks out with blood splattered on her coat. She sits on the porch and drinks the canned beer that Nathan left behind, knowing it's finally over. Damn, Thandie Newton really did that. What did you guys think of this thriller? It's definitely true to real life how harassment can happen to a woman living all alone in the country.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.